Hello everyone and welcome back to Anything Joe's, a collaborative journey through the world of G.I. Joe. My name is Greg Engel.
And I am Jaren Decker.
And we'll be your host today. It's the exciting conclusion to the G.I. Joe Declassified 3-part series where we're going to finally learn the fate of Jodie Craig, aka Shooter, the 14th Joe. And in addition to that, we're going to see the conclusion of the prequel mission to the formation of the G.I. Joe team, where we've got some guys in hot water over in Sierra Gordo trying to get to an extraction because they're in a no contact order, and which is not going so well for them. So without further ado, let's open up this bad boy and see what awaits our heroes. As we've mentioned in every episode prior to this, G.I. Joe Declassified number 3 has got a cover that is part of a trifold picture. So every cover connects to make one big image. And it's no surprise that they saved the best for last because we've got Snake Eyes on the cover to this issue. Unlike the last issue, this is a pretty recognizable, obviously Snake Eyes. There's Rock and Roll. That's Flash. We'll say Flash. It's Flash. So compared to the last issue, I do think that this, that Scarlet in the foreground, I thought looked kind of wobbly. I think this Snake Eyes looks pretty solid. He's got some pretty superhero-esque texture. I mean, he's a thick boy, ain't no doubt about it. But I like the detail on his mask. He's got like a true commando vibe going on with the little nose slits or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think Rock and Roll and Flash both look really good as well. I do think the ram is off quite a bit, much like the vehicles from issue 2. It doesn't look like it has the little side gun that attaches to it. The framework of the ram, it just doesn't really look like the ram a whole lot. It looks like he just took a lot of liberty with this and the vehicles from the second one. But again, the vehicles on the first cover looked like, down to the blueprint, looked realistic. If you look in between Snake Eyes' chest and his arm, it's almost like that dude was just like, I'm just going to draw a couple of boxes and people will just assume that the bike continues. But because there's where's Rock and Roll's leg? You know what I mean? Is he laying on it flat? Anyway, I guess his legs could be on the other side of the bike and he's holding it up, but it just seems off.
He's got it propped up real fancy like.
The ghost of Cobra Commander's face is in the background, and it looks exactly like the cat with the cowboy hat on that's singing Take Me Home Country Roads. That's what it makes me think of. Not a bad cover. I do think Snake Eyes looks really good on this. The background is lacking a little bit, but it's better than cover 2, but still not as good as cover 1. Any thoughts on this?
First off, Snake Eyes' abs don't look human. That's the only thing that I'm like, I don't feel like that's how abs are shaped. But no, I completely agree. I think number 1 still is set a high benchmark for it, and 2 crazy let it down, and 3 brought it back up, but still didn't get as high. I love these kind of covers though, even though it didn't stick the landing as much as I would have liked. I love when they do these kind of covers because you can display them in such a great way. I like the art that they were doing, but I can't get over Cobra Commander now because of you.
I agree. I like covers that connect like this. IDW is really well known for doing variants that often connect, and they have been doing that for several years. Jamie Sullivan has done a lot of connecting covers that I'm extremely fond of. That OG-13, he did a cover set that had every Joe on it, and he recently completed one that had every Cobra on it as well. And those are 5-issue connecting covers. I think they're extremely good. I really like the blurb on the bottom of this. It really knows its audience. It's like the quote is a must read for G.I. Joe fans old and new, from comicswaitingroom.com. Let me see if that's even a real website anymore. comicswaitingroom.com. It redirects to a blog called Happy Nonsense. So
they rebranded.
Yeah. Keep trying, guys. Well, no, actually, what I was getting at is the way they bring you in beneath that blurb is it just says Larry Hama ! I'm like, well, you know your audience because that would have definitely enticed me both then and now. That's all it really takes. All right, so let's get into it and see what's going on in Sierra Gordo. There's a variant cover for this. I forgot. Cover B is a action figure tribute cover, just like the others. It's drawn by Tim Seeley, and in this one we have Cobra Commander. This is another explosion background reminiscent of the action figure packaging. Again, looks good. There are worse ideas for variant covers. I'm neither enticed or repulsed by this cover. It simply is. I do like Tim Seeley's art, and I've met Tim Seeley multiple times. I think he's a really nice guy. There's just not a lot to this cover ultimately. All right, so we open up in Sierra Gordo. And it looks like our guys are still traveling to the extraction point. Stalker has made the executive decision to not leave their wounded prisoner behind. He will carry him to the LZ on his own, which has got to be the absolute worst feeling in the world. And it looks like he's a bit of a chatty Cathy as we open up on this, because he's feeling good enough to engage in conversation with the team. And you, the one they call Zap, how can you betray your Latino brothers and sisters by being a running dog for the gringo exploiters? Have you no shame? Zap looks back. Stalker, you have to have a screw loose to carry this loser all this way. Chill, Zap. I am not going to leave a prisoner to die. Where is your sense of decency? Did the gringos recruit you from some squalid barrio? Why do you fight against revolutionaries who are trying to change a corrupt society? Barrio. Is that the kind of stereotype your propaganda machine churns out? First off, I grew up in nice, middle-class Westchester County, New York. Dad is a lawyer, Mom is a pediatrician. Flashback. I'm here because of what happened while I was in college. Looks like a nice suburban home. A nice little blue convertible pulls up. Rafi, you're home just in time to see your sister off. Congrats on finishing your residency, Gracie. Gonna hang your shingle in another town? Oh, Rafi, I'm going to Africa as a volunteer for Doctors Without Borders. What? They are sitting at a dinner table now inside. I can't get over it. I never thought Graciela was like Miguel. What's that supposed to mean? Come on, Mike. You have a law degree from Yale, and you insist on doing pro bono work in Spanish Harlem. Then you don't know Gracie very well, or you never listened to what Mom and Dad said at the dinner table during Grace. All of this, what we have, all these good things are a blessing. It comes from somewhere, and we have an obligation to pay it back. Pay it back? Pay it back to the sea of life we spring from. If you don't give some back in some way, it goes away. Remember that your grandpa Melendez came here from Puerto Rico with the clothes on his back and nothing else. I didn't spend the last 4 years at MIT so I could build rope and plank bridges in third world countries. Did I? Then there's an awkward pause around the dinner table as they all kind of look at him. Cut back to real time. What? You joined the gringo military out of guilt? No, stupid. I did it because I wanted to make a difference. That's telling him, Zap. Suddenly, troops jump out from everywhere. They're surrounded on all sides. Mira! Pop caps and break hearts. Looks like that, no contact order has got to be rescinded in the face of certain doom. Lots of small panels of people just get thrown into action. People like pulling the trigger, close-ups on looks, guns going down. They see a silhouette of a body taking damage. Zap is firing off. People changing mags. There's a knife in the air. This guy pulls a pin out of a grenade. Rock and Roll's got his gun going off. There's an explosion. Oh my god, it's blood! Anyway, looks like they did the job pretty well because they drove them off. And they start to run away. One of them's actually firing in the air for effect. No cojones, huh? Just smarter than the rest. Things are quiet as we cut to a POV of binoculars. Somebody's watching our troops as they successfully ward off these invaders. Cut away a little further, and it's Shooter, still in her ghillie suit, takes her binoculars down and pulls out her walkie-talkie and makes a little static noise on it. Back to Fort Wadsworth, where the team is assembled and is kind of watching the play-by-play, so they're all there to see how it goes down. We got a bounce from an EA-6B Prowler on station above Sierra Gordo. Somebody broke squelch on the secure channel. Hawk is looking curiously. Who else is out there? In a secret room at the Pentagon. The only two people that do know she's out there, General Flagg and our boy Sparks. She's on site, and she has contact. Let's hope she makes all the right choices, Sparks. Again, I gotta bring this up. There's another panel from the comic with Rock and Roll firing, clearly implying that they have video surveillance footage of what's going on in Sierra Gordo. General Flagg, you chose her, and you chose Hawk. I don't have to carry the chain of logic any further than that, do I? Phone suddenly rings, and Flagg picks it up. Yes, Hawk? I've been expecting your call. Don't worry about that squelch. So, again, they basically are in the dark that Shooter's on the scene and what they're up to there. In the pit, we're looking at, I guess this is Hawk, having just placed that call. He's got some stuff laid out on his desk. Behind him on the wall, you can see the Amelia Earhart quote that Grunt had quoted to him when they had their little conversation about how he got into the team. Looks like maybe Hawk is taking a moment of reflection and prayer as he has his like hands kind of gripped together. And he gets up out of his desk. He walks out into the hallway, and everybody's there. The rest of the team is assembled and locked and loaded. What's the meaning of this? Why is everybody in full field gear and combat kit? Scarlet steps up. The situation in Sierra Gordo is deteriorating. If we pull strings and move down the stage at Gitmo and fast movers, we can deploy out in sterile helicopters and stand down. If we can extract the team and all their gear, there's still a basis for deniability. That's a no-go on the rescue. I don't believe that absolutely nothing is being done. For the record, nothing is being done. And off the record, single panel of Hawk saying nothing, just making eye contact with her. Back to Sierra Gordo. That's it. That's the extraction site up there. They're kind of at the base of a like big, not quite a mountain, but certainly a tall hill that's going to require some agile climbing. Oh man, there's no cover all the way up. And when the Black Ball Blackhawk comes in, it's not going to land. We're going to have to board as it goes by. Stalker, my man, do you mind telling me just how you're going to get up that encampment while carrying a wounded prisoner? Don't know, and maybe it is impossible, but I have to try. It's my responsibility. You going to ever tell us why? I was at a refugee camp in Barovia during the UN peacekeeping mission. Now we're having a flashback for Stalker, something that's been building for the most of this series. I was NCOIC, which is the non-commissioned officer in charge of the security detail, and Indig, indigenous person, aka a local, was being questioned by an MP at the gate. That's military police. They didn't bother to break that one down for you, but let's be thorough. Looked like a routine check. The Indig had a backpack. Looks like the security officer pulls up his walkie-talkie. He's like looking in his backpack. Suddenly the Indig pulls a pistol and pops the MP. He's running. And I'm chasing. Looks like Stalker is in a Jeep at the time, so he like puts it into drive and gets on this guy's heels. Pretty soon I'm tackling. Looks like he closes the distance, gets out of the Jeep, grabs him around the torso, and that's quite the tackle. Hey, we just went through this lowlife's backpack, and we found a crimping tool and blasting caps. Let's see what your hands smell like, Sonny. That telltale stink of dead rubber. This guy's been handling plastic explosives. We know this because Snake Eyes made a pot of coffee. They, again, specifically made a callback to how it made a stink of dead rubber. So that's a nice little connection there. Get these old folks and kids out of here. We haven't even finished frisking this guy yet. Sarge, there are thousands of kids in the camp. 3 schools, a hospital, 2 infirmaries, a nursery. Stalker grips this guy by the collar and pulls him close to his face. Where did you plant the bomb? How big is it? What's the timer set for? This dude spits in Stalker's face, which has got to be the stupidest move I've ever seen. Stalker takes a look at him, and this guy's got a big smug grin on his face as he looks back. What are the lives of 1,000 children compared to Baravian sovereignty? Stalker again has got like this spit dripping off his face, and he looks mad as hell. Sarge, the gym bag was almost empty. He could have had 50 pounds of Simtex in here. We are talking a massive body count. Again, they're staring face to face. Stalker puts his hand out to the nearby trooper. Give me your bayonet. Back to the utility closet at the Pentagon. Will Shooter do it? Do what, sir? Pull the trigger on a stranger. Do you know who Sergeant York was, sir? World War I Medal of Honor winner. Hill 223 in the... you want to take a stab at that?
No, I don't.
Hill 220... I got to look it up. I don't even have the foggiest.
2 hours later.
World War I Medal of Honor winner, Hill 223 in the Meuse Argonne. When the smoke cleared, 25 Germans lay dead. He was a Sunday school teacher and a pacifist, sir. He had to make a terrible choice then. Every soldier has to make terrible choices, sir. What do you know about Shooter that I don't? Her mother was a Sunday school teacher. She volunteers to work with disabled kids when she's off duty. Do you not think she will do it then? I don't know, sir. What I do know is that her decision will be well thought out. So that's the first little glimpse into Shooter's actual background. Like, we really don't know anything about her other than she sticks up for the Joes when she's on base. And scraps of detail like that will be, it's like pulling teeth. It's hard to learn a lot about her. Back to Sierra Gordo, we're again in the POV of Shooter as she's watching them extract. She closes in on Stalker, who is got the prisoner on his back still trying to make his way up this hill. She takes the binoculars down for a second and looks up, and she sees a glint of light off on a nearby hill, pretty close to her actually. That catches her attention, so she puts her binoculars up and takes a look, and she sees some I'm guessing some more Liberation Front guards there. They're armed. They have a radio. Shooter knows this is an issue, so she gets her sniper rifle out. She has them in. They're targeting them with a sniper rifle. She's targeting him with a sniper rifle. Close-up shot of her closing one eye, getting her, kind of taking her breath. Pulls the trigger. Blam. Doesn't shoot him. Shoots the gun right out of his hand. Hijo de la, he says, which means I don't know what that means. Let me see what that means.
4 to 6 days later.
Hijo de la means son of a. Son of a. Shooter clacks out that shell and loads up for her next shot. Fires again, and this time fires through the radio of the second trigger. Like, obviously, an amazingly skilled shot, and went through great efforts to not hurt these guys. He hits the ground, the guy with the hurt wrist, and the other guy's like, his radio is smoking. She, again, ejects that shell and loads up her next shot. Back to the pit. Did you hear that? I guess there's some sort of backstop mission out there. So secret, we don't even know about it. It's worrisome, isn't it? I mean, all this secrecy, it seems undemocratic in a way. The way the phrase secret police has come to mean something bad. One might argue that drastic measures are called for to ensure freedom. It's still contradictory and oxymoronic. Most folks don't want to know the truth. All those folks safe at home in the suburbs, they don't want to know the terrible things that have to be done in their name. They don't want to take a tour of the sausage factory either. Might put them off their feed. Is that why we do this? So that little Susie in the suburbs doesn't have to think about it? That's the way it's always been. Back to Sierra Gordo. Looks like the fellas have made it just all the way up this hill. There's a chopper off in the distance, so things are starting to look pretty good for them. Hey, you don't know how Stalker hooked up with Hawk? You don't know about the court-martial and the terrorist who got tortured in Barovia? What? Cut back to Stalker. He's got this guy in kind of a secret storage room, and he's got his one hand on his throat up against these crates. On the other hand, he's got that bayonet. You better start talking, stud, or we're going to get down to some serious slicing and dicing here. I don't see any of this. Me either. Both of these guards are like looking away. Plausible deniability. Yeah. You will do nothing. Americans are weak and have no will. You have silly rules. We don't have the will, huh? He takes the bayonet and puts it into his own hand. The guy is obviously disturbed by this. You're crazy, your own hand. Everything has a price. Taking a step into the dark side should not be easy. Just keeping myself honest, know what I mean? Oh, by the way, once I push the point all the way through my hand, your carotid artery is on the other side of my palm. A severed carotid is pretty bad. A person could bleed out in a matter of minutes. Madness, you are crazy! No, I'm not crazy. I'm just demonstrating to you that I have the will. So, pretty hardcore. Makes me think of, have you ever read that story? It's a Star Wars comic, so there's at least a 50-50 chance, where Darth Vader fights Darth Maul.
Yes.
And he ends up stabbing himself through the stomach to stab Darth Maul, who's like got him from behind. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
I'm so glad you're talking about Star Wars.
Yep, enough of that. The chopper's starting to set down, and these guys are loading up. Grunt and rock and roll. Get on the Blackhawk and help pull Diego on. Get on, Stalker. Stalker's pulling up. They've got the prisoner, or kind of by the arm. Had to police the area. Can't leave any trace behind with Made in USA stamped on it. As they're pulling this guy up, suddenly we get a close-up of Shooter pulling the trigger, and Diego gets shot and falls limp from the plane. If the shot didn't kill him, the fall certainly will, based on how far he's got to go. Stalker, they're still pulling Stalker into the airplane, or the helicopter. He's the last man there. That wasn't supposed to happen. I was going to bring him in unarmed. He jerked right out of my hand, Stalker. Almost like he'd been shot. There's no possibility of there being anybody out there but his own people. And why would they shoot him instead of us? Shooter is like stripping off her camo stuff. She's got she's already kind of wearing her disguise underneath. It looks more like a local based on what how the outfit looks. She's on a local driveway, like a local path, and there's looks like a pig farmer truck driving by, and she's hitchhiking. These two gentlemen stop to pick her up, and she gets in the passenger seat. Gracias. Es nada. And then this is all translated from Spanish. Why so sad, señorita? Everybody goes to Rio Lindo for the fiesta. Isn't that why you are going?
I just realized something very bad about myself.
Knowing the worst about yourself is a blessing. Yes, there are many evil people in the world who don't know how evil they are. She looks forlorn off to the side.
I have to think about it.
Back to the Pentagon. Sir, our spooky bird over Sierra Gordo has a transponder signal from Shooter. She's on the road to Rio Lindo. Her covert extraction is underway. Then we had better take care of that other piece of business. Yes, sir. His office wasn't listed and his records are classified. How did you... He still gets paid. I asked the finance clerk. E-ring, right here. They open an office door. Flag and Sparks step in. What's the meaning of this? You can't barge in. Do you remember a certain Lieutenant Colonel Abernathy? You initiated court-martial proceeding against him for action in Barovia. There was a conviction, and then that was voided. And now he is supposed to be retired, but the fools set him free and let him return to active duty. I am going to see he gets the book thrown at him. We would rather you didn't do that. In fact, we would rather you present this new evidence to the court that exonerates Colonel Abernathy completely. He opens up a briefcase on his desk and has a couple like little index card looking notes and paperwork. You see, we know that you are one of the secret cabal of generals known as the Jugglers. We also know that unbeknownst to the other Jugglers, you have gone rogue. You decided to take matters into your own hands and have certain outside parties move to remove Colonel Abernathy from play. These 3 mercenaries died in a rollover on the interstate outside Baltimore. And then, of course, this is the story we heard with Clutch, where he had Hawk at the back and had to escape these guys. Do you think you can blackmail me? We also know that you made the arrangements with those other parties through this man. We have video and audio. We are prepared to lose all this evidence of your wrongdoing as long as you cooperate. Sparks hands over a picture of a man that is clearly Major Sebastian Blood, mercenary for hire. The man's name is Sebastian Blood, known as Major Blood. Cut to what I'm going to assume is Cobra Island. This had better be good, Blood. It is. I brokered a deal a while ago for a general at the Pentagon. Rows of Cobra officers, Cobra banners. Oh, this isn't Cobra Island. I don't know what I'm thinking. There is no Cobra Island at this point. This is just some island where Cobra operates, not to be confused with Cobra Island. There was a rather inappropriate colonel being considered to head up a new top-secret anti-terrorist task force, and the general thought it was in the best interest of the country for the colonel to have a traffic accident. This is old news. I have already heard that General Flagg has made his move against your general. It's Flagg who holds the cards now. Oh, well, sorry to have bothered. Big full-page reveal as Cobra Commander has got his gun drawn on Blood, sits in his throne. The Baroness is in her old-school blue issue 1 outfit behind him. You should be sorry, and out of sheer gratitude for my benevolence and not shooting you for wasting my time, you shall make it your business to put a bullet in this General Flagg at the next opportunity. My pleasure, Cobra Commander. More on that later, as that is some clear foreshadowing, but we're not there yet, Jaren, so...
Now I have a question.
Sure.
Does he just look blue on this, or is that something that did he wear blue at that point as well?
He did wear blue. This is maybe a little bit off of the Hooded Cobra Commander figure, the V1 or V2, I can't remember which came first, is a much darker blue, like a navy blue, I would say.
I'm talking about Major Blood, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. That is, I'm going to just say, is probably supposed to be like a black or a silver, and they've put blue on it, much like when Spider-Man wears a symbiote outfit, it has a lot of blue in it, or Superman's hair has blue highlights. It's just it's like a coloring effect to better reflect something in a dark environment. No, I don't think it's supposed to be blue. It's just a trick of the coloring. Much like Cobra Commander and Baroness should also not be wearing the same shade of blue. Like, they just were like, well, I got my blue out. Here we go. 6 weeks later, the whole mission was a debacle, Sparks. I beg to differ, sir. Just would love to point out that these guys are driving in a VW Bug. The classiest the military can afford. Operation Lady Doomsday succeeded in every way. Editor's note, me. I'm the editor this time. If you've forgotten, Operation Lady Doomsday is, of course, the name of the first operation from G.I. Joe number 1. So it's safe to assume that we are, 6 weeks later is the window between that mission. They formed the team. Now we're past the first mission. Why are we making this awful trip? Because there's no such thing as a free lunch, sir. What can I possibly say? Do you remember what Colonel Abernathy told you about Grunt going to visit the mother of a trainee in his unit who got killed? The trailer park epiphany? That doesn't apply, Sparks. I never even met Sergeant Craig. We don't know what happened on that island. We do know that Dr. Burkhart got rescued and that the rest of the team got out without a scratch. We know that Craig did her job in Sierra Gordo, so it's a good bet she did it again on that island. But she didn't make it back this time. No chance that Cobra took her prisoner? Her last combo check was from the castle parapet less than 5 minutes before an explosion completely destroyed the structure. They have approached a church in kind of a nondescript country town. Wait here, Sparks. Yes, sir. Flag strolls inside. Inside, it's basically completely empty except for one older woman. She's carrying a stack of books, probably hymnals. As she's walking down, they kind of fall to the floor, and the general sits down beside her and is, I guess, relaying the information of what happened to her daughter. And we cut to kind of like a flashback as he's telling this story. There are no adequate words of consolation, ma'am, and you may wonder how a sergeant on the training cadre of the chaplain's assistant school could possibly go in harm's way. Shooter is seen scaling this impossible mountain castle, like it's literally right on the cliffs, and she's scaling it from the outside. She makes it to the like teeth of the top of it and climbs up, takes cover. She's got her gun. She's loaded up. I cannot adequately console nor offer appropriate explanations. I am deeply sorry for this. There's a chopper coming down on top of the building. You can see Scarlet kind of at the unloading part of it. I can, however, tell you with uncommon certainty that your daughter always carried out her duties to the utmost of her abilities and with sincere concern for her fellow soldiers. We have firing orders? That helicopter's one of ours. Some Cobra officers around like a big flat cannon. It's been hijacked, some sort of commando team. Then we need more ammo up here. Shooter is readying her gun. She's like taking the distance. She's got her little like measuring thing. Her dedication to her duties was well known, as well as her compassion and integrity. She's zeroing in on this officer that's in the seat of this flat cannon, and suddenly there's a civilian in her line of sight holding like a briefcase. So they're like using civilians as they're carrying their ammo. They're kind of like shields for them, essentially. Shooter breaks her stealth and immediately runs out. She drops her gun. She grabs her knife. She gets on the radio.
Prowler, Package 6. This is Shooter Alpha. They're using local civilians as ammo bearers.
Did not copy that. Repeat. Was that a combo check? Hey, she immediately confronts the officers, one of which draws his pistol on her.
Vámonos! Vámonos, puebla!
He fires at her and hits her where her like walkie-talkie is mounted on her shoulder blade. She comes at him with the knife, and there is no doubt in my mind that her actions at her final moments were in keeping with the finest traditions of the service. She dives on this first guy with the knife, and it's probably safe to assume that he's a goner. The ammo bearers, they make a break for it and are trying to get clear. Forget them, shoot her. And sure enough, you see the ammo bearer civilians. They're like rappelling down the castle. The second officer opens fire with his pistol on Shooter, who has her back to him dealing with the first guy. She takes 3 shots directly in the back. Suddenly, there's a huge explosion right beside the chopper. I extend to you the heartfelt sympathies of the cadre and trainees of the Chaplain's Assistant School at Fort Wadsworth. Inside the plane, you can see that they have Dr. Burkhart on the helicopter. You see that Joes are kind of like celebrating because they don't understand the how the explosion happened. Just that it kind of like that's granted in their freedom essentially. Maybe they thought one of the other guys took care of it. Maybe they thought it was a fluke and they messed up themselves. But you can clearly see that they're like, yeah, we made it. Back to the church where Shooter's mother finally starts talking. I will call as soon as the arrangements are made. She was very proud of being a good soldier, you know. Flag stands up and puts his shades back on, starts to leave. Yes, ma'am, she certainly was. 1 week later, Lieutenant Hut, got a bunch of, it looks like all the troops all the OG-13 is here. There's a standard like boots, helmet, gun kind of memorial service set up on the ground. Rock and Roll and Clutch are having a quiet whisper amongst one another. Who is this Sergeant Craig, and why were we all bussed out to that church for her memorial service? She was on cadre at the Chaplain's Assistant School. Shh. General Flag is making a speech. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. The soul that knows it not knows no release from little things, knows not the livid loneliness of fear, nor mountain heights where bitter joy can hear the sound of wings. Amelia Earhart wrote that. Flag looks away for a second. Dismissed. You can see all the 13, they're like carrying the flag, and they're all walking away from the memorial. The end. So, we've got a lot to talk about here. Let me start with, before I get lost in my thoughts. Let's back up just a couple pages. So we are to assume when we read issue number 1 that Shooter is involved in the extraction of the G.I. Joe team. Because in this next to last page, you can see Burkhart is clearly on the helicopter with them. Now, it hasn't been that long since we read issue 1. If I'm remembering correctly, they do steal a Cobra helicopter after everybody gets away. But we don't see this particular scene. We don't know that there was a last minute, difficulty that could have, caused an issue. So this is like a little extra, nod. I mean, essentially, they're writing her death into the existing continuity. And they did it in a way where, obviously, these guys don't know who Shooter is. Weird, you know what? Actually, another thing that comes to mind now that I'm thinking about it is Rock and Roll says, who is this Sergeant Craig and why were we all bust out to that church for her memorial service? But in issue 1, we clearly established that Sergeant Craig was at the Wadsworth Assistant Pool, did speak up for these people, was known by name to maybe not Rock and Roll, but to other Joes. Because there's a specific line of dialogue where one of them is like, wow, that Sergeant Craig is a cool so-and-so. So at least some of the Joes here would remember her, even though they don't know that she was secretly involved in the military agenda. I mean, you don't actually have to be a detective to kind of put those two things together, right? If you were like, oh, this is somebody that worked on the base with us. Oh, this is somebody that died in combat. Hey, maybe she was also a secret military operative. Anyway, that's food for thought. That's just some stuff that's now that we've read these kind of close together, I can connect a little bit more stuff that it wouldn't have occurred to me if I read these, even on a monthly basis. It probably would have already slipped out of my mind. So those are two unusual things. I don't love that Shooter dies at the end of this. And I also don't love that the way that it happens. I respect that she blows her cover to save some civilians. But the idea that Shooter couldn't just, shoot over this woman's shoulder and take this dude's head off based on the prowess I know she has. Also, she's sniping from an extremely close range. So, I don't know. I feel like that Shooter, it was just Shooter's fate was she has to die because she's not on the team anymore. And so they just were this is the first instance where she could have been connected to the team and got killed. I don't know. I don't want to say, I think lazy is too harsh a critique. I just think there would be a better way to have done it. I would have been totally fine if she hadn't died and retired, or maybe even cooler if she didn't die and they were like, yeah, she's been helping out all this time and you guys have never known that she's helped on literally hundreds of your missions. I think that would be cool. In my Joe verse, especially because as we get ready to talk about the figure, she's not dead in my universe. I typically, if I have a character, I try not to kill them. I either will undo that continuity to fit my needs or I will write them back. I'll be like, oh, she actually didn't die from those 3 bullets. They did a medical procedure and extracted on her, and then they threw in the brainwave scanner, and now she's a villain. I don't know. I don't like my characters to be dead if I can figure out a way to undo it. Maybe that's lazy of me to take the Bucky approach to just everybody will be okay. But anyway, so that's some stuff. Those are some initial thoughts that I have about just on that very end of the issue. Now that we've read it all and it's all wrapped up, Jaren, what are your thoughts on this story?
It's tough because I like the idea of it. I don't love the execution of it. I feel like we got the introduction of Shooter for maybe 2% of this entire 3-issue run. I think we had touched on it on the last episode that I would have been okay if you just gave me a full comic run of her. Give me her origin, give me what she does, give me her, and then give me something like this. I also agree I don't like that she died, and in my headcanon she didn't, because, hey, no body, and then they're not really dead. I mean, I get that she got shot 3 times, and then there was a giant explosion, writing's kind of on the wall, but it's comic books, no one's ever really dead, so. But I did enjoy this. I thought this was a really fun little mini-series. It's just, I hated that it seemed like in a Shooter origin story, we got no real origin and barely got any actual information about her.
Yeah, I think I had mentioned this before, but I do think just maybe a one shot focusing on Shooter would have been a little bit better. But also, I said this previously, but I kind of mistakenly built this as the origin of Shooter when it's really much, much, much more about the origin of G.I. Joe or like the lead up to that formation. None of the information that's revealed about the formation of the team is really relevant in any way. And it maybe does a little bit of some character building on some of the OG-13. Having just read this one, that stuff with Zap is actually pretty interesting because Zap is one of those, about half of the team that really gets put on the bench pretty early. So it's the first thing we've seen with Zap in a really long time that has any relevance on his, his character building. So I do like that. I do like all that detail. It just doesn't change anything specifically for me. And obviously Shooter is the character that I'm the most interested in. So I am specifically drawn to like things that are involving her. I am a little confused as to why Shooter's primary mission was simply to eliminate their hostage. Am I to assume that they just don't want any record that they were there, and that includes the execution of a combatant? I can't think of any other reason that they're just like, no. I mean, I feel like if that was the case, they could have just got on the radio and said, hey, don't bring him back. That's an order. And they might not have. I mean, I don't know if Stalker would have accepted that or not, because he is an unarmed participant, right? And that's kind of like a no-no to just kill an unarmed prisoner. But yeah. I don't know. I have conflicting feelings about that. That's the only practical way of thinking through it I can think of. It's just that they were like, no, there can be literally no traces that we were here, and that includes witnesses. And so that's why they put Shooter on the job to take him out. Even though I feel like they could have just been like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like if Snake Eyes was there, he would have just been like, chop, decapitated, no problem, let's roll. Having probably killed tons of bad guys with little or no hesitation. So that's the end of G.I. Joe Declassified. Kind of a interesting road bump in the timeline of G.I. Joe. I thought it would be cool to read this after the end of the first year of the original Marvel run to see how it kind of fits in puzzle piece wise. And I would actually say compared to some of Larry's later writing, it fits in pretty well. It's hard to reference a literal library of G.I. Joe continuity. And this, there's nothing here that is static against what we already knew. It's not like Shooter shoots Cobra Commander in the castle at issue 1 and they're, it doesn't rewrite anything, which is something that does sometimes happen in the G.I. Joe book. So yeah, anyway, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I certainly did. I do like it, and this is a book that falls to the wayside, and I had just not read in a long time. People that have been listening to these episodes have been writing and commenting saying, hey, I've never read this, so this is actually pretty interesting. So I like that a lot. I like reading through some stuff for the first time with people, including you, obviously. And I would be remiss if I said I'm pretty excited to get back to the regular book because we've got a lot of stuff cooking, and that's where we'll be, after our next regular news episode. Before we close out for the day, let's talk about this figure. So in 2016, Series 32, they released, this is basically like the end of the modern run if you don't include the Walmart Retro line that came out, which is also DOA now. But this was basically the tail end of the modern line. And we actually got some pretty cool figures from these last few waves. And this is one of the highlights, if not maybe the most standout thing that they released. They put out a 3-pack in 2016. They put a couple of them out. And this one is supposed to be, it's listed as G.I. Joe Special Forces, but it's really just kind of like a Night Force vibe. So you've got Outback in all black, you've got Falcon in all black, and then you've got Jodie Craig.
That is Wolf Squad.
Oh, that's a thing made up for them, right? They're all. I bet they all have that
patch.
All
3 of them have it, and the Black Sky Striker. There's figures in that set that have it as well.
So I wonder if is Wolf Squad supposed to be a modern answer to Night Force, or
yeah, I think so.
Double interesting that the implication being that Shooter is on this squad with these other later Joes, which also enforces my theory that she's okay because she would have never met. She would have been dead before like Outback and Falcon joined the team. So if they were on a squad together, the implication is that she is still alive and kicking. Anyway, we'll double back to that when we get some feedback from the audience. I want to know how everybody uses Shooter.
V8 or V8 Ace is that version as well. What's that logo?
That's pretty cool. We'll have to do some more digging into Wolf Squad and see exactly what their origin is, or if they have any other backstory or special. They probably don't have special assignments because they just literally would send them anywhere. Tiger Force has got snow people and ocean people and air people. Like, you would Tiger Force, you think, oh, they work in the jungle. But God, if you sent these guys into the jungle, it would be a disaster. This figure is very good. I can only imagine how difficult it is to get an approval process for a figure that has no gimmick, wears all black, is a person of color, which is not something that we see a lot of original figures of in the later era. I mean, certainly the diversity of the G.I. Joe team is there, but a new character that gets a figure that's also a female is pretty slim pickings. First black female on the team that I can think of. And it's a great figure. Awesome head mold. It obviously repurposes some parts as they all do, but it's so simplistic and it looks really, really good. She's just in black. She is a sniper. The end. What do you think about this figure? I know you are full gung-ho vintage collector now, but take a look at this snazzy modern figure and tell me what you think about it.
I mean, yeah, it's not a vintage figure. Maybe you'll get someone to make me a custom modern or vintage figure eventually, for Christmas or something. But no, I really like the design of this figure. It's one of those ones that you look at the figure and you're like, okay, this is a woman in all black. I'm guessing she's probably pretty stealthy. It's the same way when you look at Snake Eyes. You're like, okay, this guy's probably not running in and like making a big like, hey, everyone look at me. Like normally people that are wearing that are trying to be stealthy, trying to stay in the shadows. I like the gear that they gave her, the holster, the knife sheath up on like the web gear. I think this is really cool. It does have a little bit of a generic look to it, unfortunately. But if you know the character, you understand that they're not going for generic, but they're going for someone who goes under the radar. So I think it achieves a really good likeness. I don't know. I think it's a cool figure. I wouldn't mind owning it. It would be one of those ones that I would own because I like the character, not because I necessarily want more modern figures. But I think I would buy that whole kit just because I like the design of it.
The only other piece of information we have is this figure also comes with a file card. It's the only file card, obviously, for Shooter because it's the only figure for Shooter. And so we get a little bit more of a snapshot. We know she was born in New Jersey, Montclair, New Jersey. Her primary military specialty is infantry. Her secondary specialty is chaplain's assistant, which is interesting. That her actual secondary job is to just do a regular desk job at the Fort Wadsworth, which I like. And then obviously we know her full name is Jodie F. Craig. I do know that Larry has said before that this character is based on someone he knew in real life. I don't have that information right in front of me, but Larry often based a lot of characters on people that he knew or served with or was just flat out friends with. We already knew she was an E7 because they refer to her rank quite often. And the file card information says, pulling the trigger is the next to last thing Jodie Shooter Craig does as an expert marksman. First, she might take days to move into a shooting position, progressing by inches. Then she remains motionless in the hide, waiting for the target to appear. Once the target is acquired, she uses hard-won skills and esoteric knowledge to judge wind deflection and bullet drop before exercising precise breathing control prior to trigger break. The last thing she does is the hardest. Getting away. That's kind of a low blow since she didn't exactly get away, but that's fine, I guess. So yeah, anyway, that's Shooter. I like just about everything about Shooter. I like the Shooter mythology. I like that there's an Easter egg. I like that Easter egg has grown its own life and now has its own story, has worked into the actual canon and continuity of the G.I. Joe universe. If somebody else had written this, there's no telling if anybody would actually have accepted it, I suppose. But when Larry puts his stamp on it, it's basically like, if you are altering it for your Joe-verse, that's your prerogative. But this is a real American hero story, and it takes place, and it's like, you're supposed to take it as fact. I like that. I like that it's worked into the world. And again, I think that, getting the figure was a huge surprise. I don't think anybody ever expected we would get a Shooter figure of all things. And the execution on it is great. It's just about as good as I could have hoped for because they didn't go all bells and whistles with it. They didn't give her some kind of crazy, flashy outfit to make her more appealing. They stayed true to her roots, and she makes a great character. And I don't know. Every time I think about it, I like her so much. That's why I am like, nah, she's okay. She made it. She's on the team now. She's the 14th member. I actually like to think that she has been she's been MIA for an exceptionally long time, and she made her way back to the team at a certain point. If you have a shooter or are like me and are obsessed with incredibly obscure characters and you use shooter actively in your Joeverse now, leave us a comment on our YouTube video, email us at anythingjoespod@gmail.com, or go on our Facebook page at anythingjoespod and let me know how you utilize shooter in your universe. It seems a shame to get a figure as late in the line as we has as 2016, and then everybody goes, well, I'm going to put her on my shelf because she's dead. I would like to see how people have integrated shooter into their own unique Joeverse. So that's going to do it for us this week. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back in 2 short weeks with recent news and recent acquisitions. Also, I want to talk at great length because my shelves are here. They're up. I've started putting figures up. It's a long road ahead of me to sort, organize, and get all my figures on display. And it's something that I have dreamt of doing just about my entire life. Since the modern line started, I've never been able to display my vintage figures and modern figures in the same area at the same time. And this stream is finally becoming a reality. And I also want to talk about what it's like to put your collection on yourself and realize that you have 40 years worth of accessories that have never been matched up appropriately. So I've got about 15,000 loose accessories that have to be identified, matched to their proper character, and put away. So we'll talk a little bit about those hardships and maybe get some advice from our listeners on the best way to go about sorting that out. If you'd like to reach out to us on our social medias, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter at Anything Joe's Pod. You can find our YouTube channel at just straight up Anything Joe's. You can email us directly at anythingjoespodcast@gmail.com, and we would love to hear from you. And that's it. We will talk to you in just 2 short weeks where anything's available for discussion here on Anything Joe's.